Hey, everybody, it's Juju Chang with ABC News. I'm actually here in New York, but being joined via Zoom by a fabulous group of creatives from kind of all over the world. GAYLE is on tour right now with Cyndi Lauper, so she's joining us from Minneapolis. Larry Mullen is in Europe doing the thing that he does best, which is recording. Sean, of course, is in the British countryside, which is what it looks like, the cobblestones behind you. And Anna Wild Toomey, I should say, is in outside New York as well. So these are a creative bunch of filmmakers and songwriters, and we're going to enter into conversation right away. So Anna, let's start with you. I think I'm fixated by this idea that almost 50% of people incarcerated have dyslexia. And we can dig into why that is. But the flip side of more than 50% of self-made millionaires are also dyslexic. And this idea that it could be seen either as a curse or as a superpower. And so, Anna, give me a sense. I mean, you and I work together at ABC. That's how we know each other, through Good Morning America. What made you organically follow this storyline and make this film about dyslexia?
It was when my son was diagnosed. I'm one of the statistics. He's one of the statistics. He was diagnosed in first grade, and we could not get the resources that we needed through our public school. And when I recognized that it's 20% of the population that is not getting served, that are not getting the resources they need, I wanted to tell that story. And then when I saw the shocking statistic of 50% of prisoners. How does that happen? How does it occur that 20% of kids going through school, 50% end in prison? So as a journalist, I wanted to know why and how that occurs. And so that was my impetus for doing this film, and really highlighting the kids that are left behind and the parents who are also fighting for those kids. And that's what this story is about.
I really see it as a David versus Goliath story of these mama bears going out and trying to get dyslexia curriculum for their kids in public school, which doesn't exist anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of shocking. We've known about dyslexia for decades. We know how to diagnose it. We know how to teach these kids. Yet it's really not in the public system. And you see kids getting kind of swept under the rug and not getting the help that they need. And I think, as we know, dyslexic thinkers are different thinkers, and that's a great thing. And so we're leaving out these different thinkers instead of raising them up, and how creative they can be and how talented they are. And so you're really leaving out a large portion of the population. And that to me felt obviously incredibly unfair.
GAYLE, speaking of people who think creatively and differently, I want to bring you into this conversation along with Larry. Larry, I know that you sought GAYLE out to be your co-writer on this, and it's brilliant. The lyrics on Between the Lines really read like poetry. It's really brilliant. What made you, Larry, as the parent of someone who struggled with dyslexia, to reach out to GAYLE to try to get her to write this with you?
I think a project like this really needs authenticity. And, dyslexia is not a sexy subject. So it's hard to get people's attention. And you realize there are a lot of creatives, including GAYLE, who are dyslexic, struggle with dyslexia. It is not only part of their lives, it's part of their life struggle. So the whole idea of writing the end song, it was crucial to have somebody who was dyslexic who could write words, the antithesis of the belief of the dyslexic, and so it was hugely important. I think finding GAYLE was like, I mean, you couldn't write this up because it's so perfect for the film. And there are a lot of dyslexic artists out there, but GAYLE is right on. She's in the zeitgeist and people pay attention in a way that they would never pay attention to an old man like myself.
Quite to the contrary. But this is in many ways an anthem. And Billboard said, quoted you as saying that you struggle, GAYLE, with dyslexia every day. And you expressed so much of that frustration in this song.
Yes. When talking about dyslexia, I think on one side, I want to talk about how, people with dyslexia can be underestimated and not be seen in our full potential, but also at the same time, there's a lot of difficulties that come with it at the same time. And also it's a spectrum. It manifests differently and at different intensities for different people. So when it comes to me, I have a family that loves to read and they read very quickly. And I was always told like intelligence, being able to like read things off the cuff, and even when learning how to drive, I'm looking at streets really quickly, knowing what streets to take and things like that can be extremely overwhelming for me, or being asked to like read things really quickly for my friends. And while they know my life and they would never laugh at me, I still have my own internalized things about having dyslexia. So when it came to this beautiful, beautiful documentary, I wanted to be able to write something that still felt like had a silliness to it a little bit, but still was like kind of trying to capture the frustration that comes with being dyslexic.
But one of the lines that you wrote is special and weird is a thinning line. Special and weird is hard to come by. And I think that captures so much of that dichotomy, I think.
Yeah, that was kind of inspired by my grandpa when I was growing up. I always used to say I was scared, and he always said, you were excited. It just feels a little different. You have like change your perspective, like excitement and fear is a very thin line. So when I was thinking about the differences between calling somebody special and calling them weird, most of the time you're calling them the same thing for the same reasons. It's just you need to change your perspective on it. So I was kind of thinking like special and weird can be the same thing. It's just depending on your perspective of the situation.
That's incredible. And it's so ironic that lyrics are your instrument, and yet you have such trouble with this. Crazy. Larry, I know that the opening number, One of Us, was really inspired by you sort of looking at your son's frustration and putting that to music.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I'm sure GAYLE can speak to this as well. When you're in the entertainment business, you generally make music to satisfy an audience, and that's your job. It is a strange place to be creating music through somebody else's dismay in a strange way. So I was watching my son watch a very early version of the film, and I could see his discomfort with it, and then eventually couldn't watch anymore. And we spoke about it, and I could just feel that it was like firecrackers. And I just knew then that, we talked about doing the music, and I hadn't got a lot of ideas, and it just hit me. I've got to actually use my sticks to try and that they would be the voice of his frustration, and then all the other drum parts came along with that. So it was a very different way of writing music, I have to say, and exciting.
It's like your drums created those fireworks that you were feeling and hearing in that frustration. Sean, let me bring you in. I know that your worlds include both film and music, and that opening sequence, the percussiveness of it over the animation is so fascinating. It works so beautifully.
Yeah, I think that your hope when you're getting a group of people together, and all the producers on this film, myself, David Beal, Chris Farrell, Larry Mullen, obviously wanted to make sure that this film really had impact. And I think, Anna did an incredible job finding this extraordinary story. And then when you bring together the musical element, it really then becomes something that can find its way into people's hearts and minds almost subliminally. And I think that's really exciting.
And I know that there was a number of reviews, many of them raving, and one of them from Dominic Patton in Deadline. He wrote one of the truly best political documentaries of this or any other year. He equated it to Ava DuVernay's The 13th, in many ways signaling that all politics is local and that petitioning for your local school board is as political as you can get.
100%. And I think Anna should speak to this because, you know, I think that's such an incredibly apposite comment, that politics isn't just about the larger picture, it is local.
Yeah. Anna, tell us about your feelings around this. Also, this idea that impact really matters. The impact campaign, the outreach that you're hoping to do with this film is the power of storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when I thought about this film, I wanted it to be inspiring. I didn't want to just talk about the problem because, again, this is very solvable. And through these moms, I was able to really capture that triumph, that inspiration. They took the heartache that they saw their kids going through and really turned it into creating this school for all children, not their own kids, but for all of the other kids that are there and really don't have these resources. So I think it's an incredible example of local politics. I think it's, you know, when we see that frustration, when we feel overwhelmed that we can't change the system, you can. And I think there's more power that we all have inside us to do that. And that's the hope with this film. I think our hope is that people will watch it. And, you know, there's so many that we've all spoken to who have the same stories. They tell me across the country about their kids struggling and they don't know what to do and this helplessness. And I really hope that I can take that hopelessness and turn it into, make some noise, go out there. We can disrupt the system. We can change this. You know, we saw these women do it and others hopefully can as well.
And Larry, when we were in London together, we were talking about the fact that this is a global impact campaign, that this kind of curriculum doesn't exist in Europe, it doesn't exist in Ireland, it doesn't exist throughout the world. And there's so many people, the 1 in 5 statistic of all humans having some form of dyslexia is really jaw-dropping.
Yeah, it really is jaw-dropping. And also the fact that unlike most major crises around the world, it's very difficult to find solutions. What's incredible about this story and about the film is that you see the resolution in the end. There's no bad news. The good news is that this group of women, of mothers, used their voices in a very political way and changed the system. And that's the beauty of the documentary. If at the end of that documentary, of the documentary, the women had not succeeded, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. And that's the point, is that this is possible to do. And if you take the facts about the kids in jail, adults in jail, education systems, judicial systems. And if people actually just realize the amount of money it costs to put people in jail and the amount of money it costs to educate people, and you do the math, you can figure out pretty quickly. And I think in the film, I mean, Eric Adams, for better or for worse, he made that point. And it is one of the strongest points in the film. So I think that applies worldwide. Nobody's asking anybody for anything. We're just asking you to look at this. There's something to this. Change can occur with people power, but nobody's marching, nobody's taking to the streets, nobody's, campaigning. This is basic stuff. It's a human right. People have rights. They have a right to education. And there is a duty, and hopefully this film will be a call to duty for those who are interested in the education of their children.
It is in many ways an urgent call to action, and the idea that incarcerating someone costs so much more than educating someone. GAYLE, you wrote this song in 2 days, I read. It kind of poured out of you. I mean, this idea that Larry reached out to you, here's a music legend that I know you admire very much. And I read that you even covered some of the YouTube songs when you were young. Yeah, I mean, I should say younger because you're still very young. But you weren't going to write a song about dyslexia and your struggles, and yet clearly it just poured out of you.
I mean, when it comes to such a musical legend, I wanted to give him something as fast as I possibly could, but I also didn't want it to sound like absolute garbage. So I went into the studio and worked as fast as I could, and it was definitely a bit of a challenge to figure out how to talk about dyslexia and talk about my struggles, but also not wanting to get in the way of what's happening in the film. That's something I really enjoy about writing for documentaries or movies is they are the arts, and I have to figure out how I as an artist meet that art. And instead of try and my music is very abrasive and loud and trying to figure out how to meet that but not be overpowering it in any sense, and just kind of like try my best to be there and support the film. So it was really, really fun to be able to like target different parts of my brain, and to be able to get to make a song for something.
The other line that I love is, I can't fit in the box because you made it too small. I mean, really, it reads like poetry. It's so really well done, GAYLE. I love it. And so in many ways, that song, Larry, and One of Us is really the heartbeat of the film. But I'm curious how, you wrote that, or you were quoted as saying that these two generations coming together, the parents who are watching the struggle and the young people who are living that struggle. What was it like to sort of coalesce together intergenerationally?
Well, GAYLE is very generous on that level, and we come from different musical disciplines, and that's the beauty of art. You can come together over lots of different things, but this is very important to me for very different reasons than it is for GAYLE. And GAYLE was prepared to compromise in a way a lot of artists are not prepared to compromise for the good of the song. And what GAYLE brought to the idea was something that I didn't expect, which was humor, levity. It was fun and laughing at the end of it. It's yes, it is a call to action, but we've got to see that we've got to see the other side of it. I think what GAYLE represents is success. Somebody who's dyslexic, who's had all the struggles of dyslexia, comes at the other side of that and has humor, can write about it in funny ways and find the humor in it. And that's when you've achieved, I think, the ultimate goal, is when you can laugh at the things that sometimes hurt you so much.
Yeah, that is often where humor comes from, is the deepest kinds of pain. Larry, you also have shared recently that you made self-discoveries through this process, that you discovered your own struggles that you didn't even know had a name.
Yeah, it's it's the strangest thing. I always knew that I couldn't count properly, and I'm in the studio at the moment, and I experienced it yesterday, where somebody asked me to do something in 6/8, and it took me a long time. It took a long time for my brain to actually go through the motions, so it was kind of a slow process. It's a not to. It's part of that spectrum that GAYLE spoke about earlier on. And so it's dyscalculia. So it's when maths become your problem as opposed to reading and writing. And there's a musical version of it as well, where you can look at music and the notes move. When you have dyslexia, you look at a piece of paper, the letters move. It's the same for me with numbers. The numbers move, and I can't comprehend timing. So yeah, I have it. I don't know any other drummers that have it. I'm really hoping there are no other drummers with it because it would make me even more special than I feel.
Well, now we're all able to laugh at your situation, which is even more brilliant. And Anna, as a filmmaker, and I know you're a first-time filmmaker, which is just awe-inspiring to me because it's such a rich and dense film. What was it like to have this music to play with, so to speak, as a filmmaker?
I mean, incredible. I think, I really wanted to capture what it feels like for a child going through this. It's a really unique emotion. I think it's different than what a lot of, other experiences, right? You feel like your first job as a kid is to read. You're going to school and you can't do it and you don't know why. And it's a very unique feeling, and there's anger there's sadness, there's frustration, and you don't feel very valued as a child. And to be able to capture that in musically, I mean, something I could never ever even do. And so I felt so honored to have both of these incredible artists to help me capture that. And the whole first scene was transformed. I mean, we have this beautiful scene of this mother and son, and he's struggling to read. And when you added in Larry's song and the drum beat to it, it just changed the whole feel in an incredible way and elevated it so much. So that's the beauty of filmmaking, right? It's taking all of these elements, all of these creative people, bringing them together and layering it into a film. And that's what makes the process so incredible. Not only do you get to meet all of these amazing, amazing people, but to have it a part of my film. Our film is, it blows me away. It really, really does.
And Sean, let me bring you in on this conversation too, because so much of what it is layering. You have the kernel of the story. You have the brilliant mothers who just jump off the screen with their passion and their heart, and then to just add all these layers of filmmaking. What's been the most satisfying part of it for you?
I think it's interesting. We've just heard everybody kind of talk about compromise and about coming together and about community. And I think a film often thematically can sort of roll together in interesting ways. And this film has been really special in terms of creative process. I think everybody brought something incredibly unique and incredibly special, and then was prepared to turn to everybody else and go, hey, what can you do? And maybe that's because there's a lot of dyslexics on this project. I don't know. They're all special people, but it's really been an unbelievably special experience, I think, for everybody that's involved.
GAYLE, given that you weren't planning to write a song about dyslexia, what was it like to have it reach a screen? I don't know if you've seen it yet on a big screen, but what's it like to watch the music be put to, the documentary?
I've yet to see it on a big screen, but I've obviously been able to watch documentary, and I just think it's something that is so empowering, and it was really, really cool to get to be able to like talk about my own experience in a song while also still like having a song talking about other people's experience with dyslexia. Also getting to be able to do it with Larry was such a incredible, like, cool experience. So it was just very exciting and empowering overall to just be a part of this project in any way. And then getting to write for documentaries or movies is such just a different part of my brain. And then adding dyslexia on top of it, it wasn't necessarily like a challenge, but it was definitely using different parts of my brain that I was not used to, but was very, very fun and cool to be able to use and be a part of this.
And of course, your super viral hit ABCDEFU. I just think it's so funny that you used letters, to communicate that frustration.
It's very funny. I wrote that song with my best friend, who I've been writing songs with since I was 12. She was 15. Now I'm 20 and she's 23. So it has been a big joke between us for a very, very, very long time, especially after we wrote ABC. It's like, isn't it so funny that I'm dyslexic? And then I messed up the alphabet, and now it's a continuous theme in my career.
But you've always been open about it. It's not something that you've hidden at all. If anything, you've been very out front.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've definitely always been very open about talking about, especially my brother actually is dysgraphia and I have dyslexia. Dysgraphia is where you have a hard time reading and writing things down. And so he always read things really quickly, and I always wrote things down really quickly. And then we had struggled kind of doing what the other was good at. So I think it just always made me very comfortable in talking about it. Also, I loved Percy Jackson growing up, and the main character has dyslexia, Percy, because he's actually a Greek god, and the English language actually isn't built for his brain. So as a little kid, I just thought, what if secretly I was just a Greek god?
I think you may, yeah,
I
indeed.
might be actually. I think the theory is actually still running in my family. We're not.
I want to know what your superpower is. Does it involve thunderbolts? That's what I want to know.
How actually, yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Larry, I want to close out with you. I mean, you've talked about how, you've been a global rock star for decades, but in some ways, your neck injury, your COVID experience, and turning to this documentary, you wouldn't have had time, traveling the world to do this. But in some ways, that has been powerful and meaningful for you in a different way.
Yeah, I was really, after COVID, I really didn't think I was going to get back playing again. And my neck injury was pretty severe, but nobody would operate on me. And I've been speaking to Chris Farrell about the film and about the music, and I just didn't think I was going to be able to physically do it. And then I had the surgery 6 months ago. And one of the things the surgeon said to me was, you need to get back playing as soon as you can, but you need to play differently. So I went into this, I was in the studio with the band. It was the first time in the studio for over 5 years, to make a record. And like everything was kind of having to take it easy and do a few hours here. And at the end of one night, I just, I sat down and was just remembering my conversation with my son, and I just started to play those feelings. And I did it in like 15 minutes. So, Gail, I know you did yours really quick. I did mine really quick too. Yeah. So I did it I just took about 15 minutes. And that was all I could do. I was at the end of the day, I was tired of 15 minutes. And I was so excited to be able to play and to get back, and then to be able to have it in this documentary about dyslexic kids and people, and something so just so inspiring, was a great thing. It's different. It's not entertainment. This is personal, and it has a very different resonance. And I can sit here and I can speak to you about it, find it very difficult here to sell things. I'm a poor salesperson, but doing this is not any. There's no, this is not selling anything. This is just, you've got to see this. You've got to engage with this. It's important to engage with it, and to be able to have the opportunity to do that is an incredible privilege. And I feel there's, for my son and for the sons and daughters of all people involved in this, the reason that we are all doing this is we're looking for redemption somewhere, because we didn't always get it right. We got it wrong. We tried hard. We failed here. We succeeded here. So there's a whole lot of emotions, and for all of us in this, not me, it's all of us. We all have slightly different reasons, but in the end, there's just one overriding sense of, we have to do something, and this is our time, and we're doing it now.
Well, there's no more profound a way that we can close out this conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm privileged and honored to be in community with you all. So thank you, and we'll go about our day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. See ya.